Welcome to a new episode of the Prosperity on Air podcast. I'm your host, Paola De Vescovi, and today's topic is self-confidence and self-worth. Wow, a very important topic, very huge. You know, when you experience a lack of self-confidence and when you do not perceive your own worth, this affects all areas of your life. And when you have your own business, when you have a low self-confidence, when you have a low self-worth, this affects your profits, the income that you are able to generate, your relationship with your team members, and even your relationship with your customers. So working on your self-confidence and on your self-worth is really essential. I have invited my guest, confidence and empowerment coach, Ena Bautista. She's also a certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and she specializes in helping people who have experienced trauma in their life to overcome this trauma, build their self-confidence, build their self-worth so that they can move away from their trauma and build a thriving life and a thriving business. And as you will hear during my conversation with Ena, a trauma is not necessarily a major life event. It can be, a series of minor events that you constantly experience over a period of time, or even prolonged stress. So understanding the signs and recognizing the symptoms is very important. And also asking for help, maybe working with a coach who can help you see the limiting beliefs, the conditioning, and everything that makes you stay in this traumatic situation and barely survive in your life, so that you can really move forward and change your life, even when you think that there's nothing that you can do to be able to get out of this situation, of this traumatic situation that you are experiencing. Just a few words about the sponsor of this episode. That is my brand new membership group coaching program, the Prosperity Hub, specifically designed for women who want to tap into their energy, into their intuition and full potential to create prosperity in every area of their life and design a business or a career from the inside out. This is a very affordable, results-oriented online group coaching, and also a community of like-minded women who want to live purposefully, stress-free, aligned with their values and passions, as I said, in every area of their life, both personal and professional. And it is also a sacred space for women to learn, experiment, share, design, and create the life that they desire, and a business that really reflects who they are, their values, and their dreams. You can find all the information about the program and how to register on my website at www.projectprosperity.com/prosperity hub. And you will find also a link in the show notes of this episode, so that by simply clicking on it, you can easily land on the page that has all the information about the program. But now, without any further ado, let's move to my conversation with Ena Bautista. Hi, Ena. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure, absolute pleasure being here.
So I have already said something about you during the intro to this episode, but I would like you to say something in your own words about what you do, who you are, about your business.
Oh, yes, it would be my pleasure. So my name is Ena Bautista, and I'm a confidence and empowerment coach. And I work with women who have experienced trauma. I help them create a thriving lives after experiencing trauma. And this comes from doing so for myself. So I'm a trauma survivor. I've experienced a couple of traumatic events, and for the longest time, I felt like there was no hope. Nothing. It was like the good life, the happiness, love was not available for me. And I was miserable. I was holding a grudge towards everything, everyone. And it was a really unhappy way of living. And not until I found out about personal development world, and until I found out neuro-linguistic programming, that I realized that there is a potential hope for me of healing from that past trauma. And after that made me really motivated to start learning, studying, and empowering women in doing the same. And then after I got my certification as a neuro-linguistic and programming and timeline therapy practitioner, I started my own business as a coach. And my driving force was the transformation that I have gone through. I know that there are many women out there, many men, children suffering out there without feeling hope, knowing that there is a way out, and they're suffering, not knowing that they can actually thrive. The reason why I always say it's possible to thrive, because I know quite a lot of people who have suffered from trauma. They are in survival mode. You just go on a day by day, and that was me as well. I was just in a survival mode, and I didn't think it was possible to thrive, and now I know it is. I want to share that message with others and help them get there, of course.
Yeah. And as you said, there are so many people out there suffering from trauma, and sometimes trauma doesn't need to be a major.
No. They say it's. Yeah. It's not necessarily just one big, huge event. It can be constant stress, relentless stress that happens over a long period of time. And in terms of, for an example, for those who are in relationships or getting divorced, like the process of divorce and all those not small, I will put it into quotes, but those minor events over a period of time, they become that huge thing.
Yes.
Huge thing. And I have someone who has recently told me, she said, I wouldn't consider myself as experiencing trauma, but now that I know a bit more about it, and she was going through a really rough divorce, like you won't say that was one big off event. It was just like constant, and they weren't such huge big events, but they had an impact on her.
And it's also, something can be more or less traumatic also based on how we react.
Exactly. So I always say that trauma is very individual. How are you going to react to, two of us can react differently to the same event, and it's very personal. Each of us experiences it in a very different way. How we react to it, it will also depend a lot on our upbringing, our values, and you're apparently, from what I know, you're more likely to experience trauma if you have experienced it during your childhood.
Oh, yeah.
So I am personally someone who has experienced trauma in childhood, and that lasted for 10 years. So I was very susceptible to anything else, because like anything else that had that was a bit more challenging to deal with, a lot of stress, or event that is a bit challenging, it just like made me so much more so much easier for me to fall into that spiral.
What is the, let's say, what are the most common effects of trauma that you see in your clients, for example?
Mm-hmm. So like there are, let's say, I can talk about a little bit of about symptoms, but from what I see, trauma a lot of times has a huge impact on our self-confidence, on how we see ourselves, or on our self-belief, and that will have a huge variety of impact on the rest of our lives. Because if you think that if it affects your confidence, self-confidence, then you won't, for an example, you might not be able to, you won't feel comfortable to speak up at work. And that was one of the things with me. I allowed, and I'll put that, I allowed everyone to treat me as a mop. Because my self-confidence and self-worth was so low that anyone can do whatever they wanted with me at work and I wouldn't speak up. I put myself through such huge stress. I pushed myself to the furthest boundaries, like to a breaking point, because I couldn't speak up. And I think, when you think about that, that can be, you might feel like there's nothing that you can do. And if you run a business, and for me, it also appeared in my business, whenever I would try to run a business, whenever I would try to do something for my business, it's just came back to bite me. So, you don't deserve this, Ena. Who are you to do this? Are you sure? Can you actually charge that much? All those negative limiting beliefs. Of course, for each and every one of us, it's going to be different. But I think those are very universal to all of us, especially if you've been through trauma. And then you're like, can I actually create something? I had a huge, I identified with my trauma for a longest time. And it was very difficult for me to disassociate from that. And I thought to myself, but if I heal from my trauma, who am I then? Who am I if I let this go? And it can be really difficult to let go of that, because it's been, such a huge part of our identity. But, it's something that we need to let go if we want to move forward. And there was something that I said in one of my recent posts. I was writing, and something came to me. Trauma is not who we are. If you feel like you don't want to leave it, I just want to say that trauma is not who we are. Who we are at the soul level, what we're here to experience. It's not the only thing that we're here to experience. It's not us, and we need to heal from it so we can actually tune into our higher self, into who we truly are at our soul level, so we can show up as we are, so we can grow into the people that we are supposed to grow into, to become who we are supposed to be. And when you are in that trauma is me mode, you cannot do that.
Absolutely. So what I hear is, self-worth, self-confidence are two things that are really mind and affected by trauma.
Yes. Some of the symptoms, for an example, can be confusion, difficulty concentrating, anger, irritability, huge mood swings. Some people will also experience anxiety, fear, guilt, and shame are like self-blame are huge on top of that list. And then some of the things, it's just like withdrawing from others. I remember I put huge walls around myself because I didn't feel I deserved love. And again, that stems from, the self-confidence and self-worth. Like, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of receiving.
Yeah.
And then, like, you'll feel disconnected from others. You'll feel numb, most probably sad and hopeless. You won't see like there is any hope.
And
that will again, sorry to interrupt you, that will again manifest in your body as well. So all those feelings will manifest as a physical illnesses. For me, it has. It will manifest as physical, how I would say, physical symptoms like tiredness, fatigue, insomnia, being startled easily, racing heartbeat, and just like feeling like you're on edge.
Yeah, you're right. Talking about self-confidence, what can we do to increase it, to work on that? We can be.
I think yes, exactly. It's not one way, and there's no like recipe for confidence. For each and every one of us, it's going to be different. And for an example, some of us might be confident doing one thing, but completely lack of confidence doing the other thing. It's not going to be the same for everyone. But what I found was, and how it helped me move forward was, one of the things was working with a coach. That definitely had a huge impact, because when I first worked with a coach, and I've seen therapists before, for me, it didn't help because we just kept on talking about what happened. And when you talk what happened, you keep on putting yourself into that state, and you can't go out from that circle of feeling that way. So when I worked with my first coach, we focused on actually she challenged all of those limiting beliefs that I had. So when I said, oh, but I can't charge that much money, and then she would ask me, oh, but why are you worthy of charging that money? Why can you? Is it possible for you to? And then she challenged those beliefs, and then those beliefs became loose. Mm-hmm. They weren't so hardcore. Oh, like I didn't think so bad about myself, and I started thinking, oh, what if this is actually possible for me? And basically, but of course there are other things, not just working with a coach, but basically I think that's what helped me the most. And when I went through NLP training and timeline therapy, for me what was the most transformational this year was actually doing timeline therapy and releasing that anger and the fear and all those like major negative 5 emotions, the sadness, the guilt and shame and hurt. And when I released that one, everything just like became so much easier. It didn't have such a huge hold on me. But before all of that, there are other things that I did on myself. So for me, it starts with little things. I won't say that I woke up one day and I'm so confident. But you have to take some steps. So for me, it was doing little things like enforcing boundaries with people, because for me, that was a huge thing. I pleased everyone, and I told myself, okay, what if I don't do everything for everyone? The world will not collapse. So for me, that was a huge thing. I was a people pleaser, and then I asked myself, so what if I say no? What if I say no to this thing? What will happen? And when I noticed that the world didn't fall apart, that people can survive without me, and that I don't have to do everything for everyone, and that nobody abandoned me because I said no to certain things, it became, okay, maybe I can do this a little bit more. Exercising boundaries, saying no to certain things, learning how to love myself. That's one of the things. And that was the most difficult part. I would say that was the most difficult part. But when you start loving and appreciating yourself and your gifts, everything else becomes a lot easier, because then you can show love to others as well. So for me, it was what I would say, how you can start loving yourself a little bit more is definitely start putting down on paper. And this is really important. Start writing out your achievements.
Yeah.
The good things and it doesn't have to be just like professional achievements in at workplace, like achievements, little achievements. And I have a little, it's called success jar. I created it like about 5 years ago. So what I did is I wrote down whenever I would do something new for my business, or master the new skill or something like that, I would write it down on a piece of paper and put that in a jar. And every couple of months, or whenever I would feel like really down about myself, I would take things out of that success jar and read, oh, actually I achieved this. It's actually not bad. So one of my earliest, and now I would say, oh, that's so funny. But 5 years ago, I didn't know how to do MailChimp. I didn't know how to send out an email. I was completely out of it. And to think of that, before I became a coach, I was a virtual assistant who was so techy, to go into that, to go through that transformation in such a, let's say, short period of time. That was really amazing for me. And I celebrated myself for that, because I didn't know how to do that, and I learned. I didn't know how to build a website. I did that, learned it from YouTube. So, small achievements, small little things that you do throughout the day. Oh, I managed to do this, which I normally don't do. Celebrate yourself. Ask yourself, why are you awesome? Why am I awesome? Or when someone says something good about you, take a snapshot, even if it's on social media, put it in a separate folder. And then when you start having those doubts, go look through that.
Yeah.
Because the people will highlight certain things about you that you don't see about yourself. And sometimes it's a lot easier to just see, oh, actually I did this. And if someone said thank you to you because you helped them, remember that, note that down, because what tends to happen, we hyper focus on the things that didn't go wrong and then just brush off the things that are going right. And I think the gratitude practice is really, really important. So like cheesy or like to say, but actually it is really important, because focusing on the positive, you start noticing more of the positive. That's how our brains work. What you focus on, you notice. So if you keep on noticing, oh, how everything is horrible, you'll keep seeing more of that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the steps. And when you start loving yourself, self-confidence, and like noticing how successful you are, how good at things you are, then building up that self-confidence it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, what I really like about what you're saying is the fact that it is a process.
Mm-hmm.
It is a process that you have to commit to consistently. And this
Yes.
is a process that it's made of very small steps, one step
Yes.
at a
So
time.
I'll note this, note something in here. I did a lot of on my own, and it took a longer than it would have if I hired a coach to help me break those limiting beliefs. Who had the, if I hired a coach earlier on, it would have helped me to go through those limiting beliefs even further.
Yeah, no,
To get,
I
and
agree.
it's just like working with someone just fast tracks
Accelerate.
that. Yes, accelerates that journey. But I want to say something in here. Confidence mindset, it's an ongoing thing.
Yes.
So I have built my confidence over the years, and I changed a lot from the person who I was 6 years ago when I moved to the UK. But when I became a mom, and I experienced quite a lot of traumatic events during the childbirth and stuff that happened after the childbirth, and that knocked my confidence so much. And when you are so hormonal, you can't think, like, there's again lost my identity and everything. And I wasn't practicing those little things because I was hyper focused on taking care of the little guy, of my son, focusing on providing for him, all that new stuff that you focus on. And I forgot to focus on my mindset. And that's where it spiraled down, and I went down to that rabbit hole of postnatal depression and all that stuff. But I did get better afterwards. Of course, I reached out for help. But that's what I want to emphasize, is that mindset is an everyday thing. There will always be something, no matter at which level, there will always be something that will come up. And we need to know how to deal with those things that come up, because expecting that your life, it's not going to be perfect. There will be life events, and we need to find the strategies to cope, to deal with those events, and to deal with whatever comes up, the feelings as well. Not just the events, it's also our feelings from within.
And you have to accept them. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
And as we said, it's, how we react to situations and circumstances, and being aware of, the way we react is also very important. And it makes, once we are aware, we know how we can try and adjust and change things.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, we have the control.
Exactly.
Yes.
And what I learned in NLP and timeline therapy, mostly NLP, you can control your state. So there are a couple of techniques that you can do to control your state, so you don't go full on into that stress mode. There are ways of how you can cope better, what you can do when these things happen. So there are ways to control your actual state of how you respond to certain events.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that, it's your personal story who in a way shaped your business and what you have decided to do. And there's also a very important part of your business, which is your Ena's Thrive After Traumas, your Thrive After Trauma TV. So can you tell me a little bit more about this show?
So I started that one. So when I qualified as an NLP practitioner this year, one of my driving forces, as I said, was to help people who have gone through the experience similar to mine. And then after that, I went into, but I'm a bit shy to talk about trauma. So I went into the usual confidence coaching. And then I had a talk with one of my friends, and we just realized that we're drowning into like what everyone is doing. And there's no disrespect towards that one. It's just that I noticed that I wasn't following what I set out to do. And then decided to create that Thrive After Trauma show. And one of the things, there was one story that before I did my NLP training, there was one story of a lady, and I don't know the full details, but basically there was a young woman who has experienced a traumatic event, and she was legally allowed to commit suicide because she signed up for that. And that's a really that really made me emotional when I heard that story. She was allowed to like, I think it was Switzerland. They went and she did that. She applied and they did the euthanasia because she felt like she couldn't live with everything that has happened to her, with all of her experiences. She felt so down. And I thought to myself, you know, how many people are out there suffering like that, not knowing that there is a way out, and are afraid to ask for help. And for me, starting that Thrive After Trauma TV was about just spreading the hope, spreading the voice. My father was someone who experienced war, and he suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder and trauma himself. And we were the second-hand sufferers because he was so destructive towards himself and towards others. But because he didn't have help, unfortunately, there was no help for veterans of war. And I thought to myself, how many people out there are second-hand sufferers from someone who has suffered trauma, and how much we can change what is happening if we treat the person who has suffered first. How much more we can help. Like, we prevent that child from experiencing emotional or physical abuse, or a woman, a wife, or like a different partner. Like, if we treat those, or family members at the end of the day, wider family members, if we treat the person who has experienced trauma first. And for me, that was a guiding force of doing this. And I started my Thrive After Trauma channel of TV on my Facebook page because I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted for people to come and see that there is a way of thriving, that you can heal. It's not just about it being in survival mode, that you can actually live a successful and happy life. And when I started that channel, my vision was to get people to see how you can come from different backgrounds, different experiences, traumatic experiences, and still thrive. And that's why I'm inviting people who have gone through so I'm interviewing people who have gone through those kind of experiences. I've had one of my guests, she worked in the military. She had a close friend commit suicide, and like divorce, financial struggles, all that. And she came out the other end and created a really successful life and business. And now I have amazing Eddie Harris Hill, who is going to be talking about thriving after narcissistic relationships. And I know that if you've been in a relationship where there was a lot of abuse, it can have a huge impact on your future relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
And it just has a knock-on effect. And if you keep on going into relationships without dealing with the first traumatic experience, then you cannot I won't say you can't settle down, but you can't thrive in that relationship. Yeah. You're not going to be as happy, and there's always going to be all that stuff around you. So for me, it's very important to highlight different experiences that people have gone through, and I have actually gone out the other end, and they're thriving, creating really successful, happy lives.
Yes. So amazing work. And of course, we will put the link to your show in the show notes, so that people can come and watch it. And
yes, it would be my pleasure.
and see that there is a way out.
Yes. And for me, one of the driving force again was because I wanted to start the conversations. I know when I suffered and my dad was the abuser at the time, there was a lot of shame and guilt and all sorts of stuff, but mostly shame. And shame can prevent you from speaking out and asking for help and talking about certain things. And I think for me was really important is that we start the conversations. We are out there. It's not my husband recently told me, but it's a really strong word. And I said, I know, but we need to talk about this. Yes. Because if you keep it just to yourself, then you're suffering alone. If we keep quiet, then there are so many people out there suffering on their own. At their own homes, crying in their own rooms and like not asking for help, not moving forward. And that's what I want to change.
Yeah. And what is your zone of genius, Ena?
My zone of genius. So I would say I'm multi-talented. My intuition, learn to listen to my intuition. So I can always suss out when someone is talking about certain things. I can always suss out what's the deep core issue out there. And I'm a huge empath, experiencing bullying and emotional and physical abuse, and it's just made me so much more empathetic towards people who are suffering, who are going through emotional struggles. And sometimes I can relate to things even though I haven't experienced those, because I know it's not about the experience, it's about the feeling. It's about your experience of that experience, how you're feeling inside and how it's impacting your life. So and of course coaching and motivating, inspiring people, coaching them through their struggles, helping them get out of that, figure out what's the limiting belief, and of course move away from that and get better.
Yeah, beautiful. And I know you have a favorite quote.
Yes, you can do, be, and have everything that you want. Like everything that you desire, it's available for you. And for me, it's a significant because I didn't believe that I can have or do or be anything. I didn't have any faith in myself. And when I restored my confidence, I actually realized that I can have it all. I can be or do anything that I want. And I know that's possible for each and every one of us when we allow ourselves, when we open up ourselves to something new, the possibilities.
And giving also ourselves permission to believe that we can.
Yes, because it can be difficult to, just believe. And when you give yourself permission and ask yourself, oh, what if? And I think that's one of the powerful questions that helped me. Yeah. What if? Because I had an experience a couple of years ago. I'm terrified of heights. But I went for a holiday to Philippines with my husband, and I signed up for paragliding, which basically just puts you to such a huge height. I loved it. And I thought to myself, wow, I thought I will never in my entire life be able to do this. But if I did this, what else can I do? If I did this, if I did something that put me out of my comfort zone, what else is possible for me? And this is the key to moving forward. I always do this. If I've done this, which I thought was never possible for me, and it was so difficult, what else? Yes. What if I can do this? Yeah. Very powerful question.
Very powerful question. So, Ena, where can people find you?
they can find me at my website, which is enabautista.co.uk. You can find me on my Facebook page, Ena Bautista Coach, Mindset and Strategy Coach. And we will be including the links. I have a free training coming up, which will be ongoing training available to sign up. Which is about healing and thriving after trauma. So I want to emphasize that one. Ask whoever is touched by the conversation that we have, that we've had now, that, you can sign up, and I will be going a lot deeper into this one. And of course, on my Facebook page, I'm running this Thrive After Trauma channel, which is absolutely free. You can tune into all the videos so far. And of course, sign up for any future trainings. I'm currently doing these at every 2 weeks, but I think I'll be doing it every month, because it requires a lot of preparation.
Yes.
And trying to arrange speakers and everything in between. Now, my intention was every 2 weeks, but after doing this for a couple of times, I've noticed that, I need a bigger time, because sometimes even the speakers need some time, and arranging everything, it takes a while.
It does. It does take a while. Even with, this podcast requires preparation and
yes, so
post-interview work, and
I completely agree. So it is. It takes out of energy, but I'm really enjoying doing this. But I definitely want to make sure that it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality of exactly. And of course, on my Facebook page, I always talk about the self-confidence. I always make sure that I give you something to do, to think something through, because I think these powerful questions can help us make that shift.
Yes, and I agree. Of course, all the links
will be included.
Will be in the show notes of the episode. And for our listeners, Ena is one of the amazing speakers. Even who Dare to Desire conference.
Yes.
That by the time this episode is published, it will be just a few days away. So I encourage you to join us on January 31st, 2020 in London for this very inspiring conference, where you will hear many stories, different experiences, and all these stories point into this direction.
Yes, exactly.
Really, you can go through lots of things. There's always a way out. And
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And if you allow yourself to desire, if you allow yourself to ask yourself, what else is possible for me? I think that's the point of this conference is allowing yourself to desire. And if you come there, you will see different women going through different experiences and sharing their story, and how they've allowed themselves to desire something which is bigger than their current situation, and they've moved forward. And I think that's what I would always say, do for yourself, come and get inspired.
Yes. So if you are in London, join us. The link is in the show notes. And if you are in London, you can, take advantage of this opportunity, maybe to spend a nice weekend.
Exactly. Yes. Because there's something so powerful, so magical about being in the room with so many people who are in the same energy. Yes. And even if you feel, if you're just like feeling, I'm not so sure about this, but when you come there, it's contagious. That energy is contagious, and it will wash all over you, and it will be the boost that, at least I feel, it's going to be the boost that you need to take that next step forward.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to be there too, Ena.
Yes,
so meet in person.
Yes, me too. I'm so looking forward to it, and give you a big hug.
Yeah, and since we are, in the first month of the new year, as I said, by
Yes,
the
it's the
time
beginning
this
of the year.
episode exactly is finally on air, and we wish everyone a marvelous
Marvelous new year.
2020, full of all the things that you desire.
Yes, exactly.
And thank you again for being with us, Ena.
You are very welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Ena Bautista, and especially that you found it useful. Maybe you have identified some signs or symptoms indicating that maybe there is something that is holding you back and that is preventing you from achieving what you desire in your life or in your business. And so maybe you are considering the possibility to ask the help of a coach or join a specific program that can help you really release everything that is holding you back. You will find all the information and the links to get to know more about Ena, my program, the Women Who Dare to Desire conference, in the show notes of this episode that you can find at www.projectprosperity.com/033 Prosperity on Air. And if you enjoyed this episode, you found it useful, please leave a comment or a review on Apple Podcast. You can leave a comment on my website. And if you have any suggestions or requests for specific topics that you would like me to cover, maybe inviting some other guests who are, specializing in the specific topic you are interested in, you can send an email at info@projectprosperity.com. I wish you a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week with 2 more episodes of the Prosperity on Air podcast. Bye for now.